The stars above Earth were silent for weeks. No signals came from the human colonies. No transmissions, no movement in trade routes. The galaxy believed humanity had fallen quiet, perhaps even surrendered, but silence, when it came from Earth, was never a sign of peace across the Milky Way. Alien empires whispered in council chambers. The human alliance had been too quiet, too still, too calculating. And then one morning the signal came. It wasn't a distress call nor a declaration of war. It was a single message sent across every channel in every known language. "Leave our skies," the voice said, calm and cold, "or face what comes next." In the command bridge of the Zethar Armada, Admiral Korthal laughed. He stood before his crew, his scaled hands tightening on the rail. "Humans think their words can frighten us," he said, his voice booming through the hall. "They have one small planet and old war relics. We have thousands of ships." The bridge erupted in laughter, echoing arrogance. They had forgotten Earth's history of silence before storms. Far below the laughter, in the shadow of Earth's moon, the TSS Vigilant floated in darkness, its hull black as void. Its engines dormant, its crew silent. Captain Mira Han sat before the old terminal, watching the alien fleet form above Mars. Her crew waited for orders. Tension thick in the air, she whispered. "They received the message?" "Yes, Captain," replied the communications officer. "They're mocking it." Mira's expression didn't change, her eyes cold and steady. "Good," she said. "Then they've made their choice. Back on Earth, deep under the Pacific Ocean, massive machines began to awaken. They had slept for generations, built during the Great Collapse when humanity had nearly destroyed itself. Buried in forgotten vaults, they were the last line of defense, the Black Sky Network. One by one, their cores lit up, humming softly, spreading energy through the ocean's dark floor. Tidal sensors, defense satellites, orbital cannons, and all synced under one heartbeat, Earth's heartbeat. Meanwhile, alien fleets filled the upper orbit, their weapons ready. Thousands of ships pointed at a blue planet that refused to kneel. Admiral Korthal sent his final message, mocking and proud. "Human command, we give you one last chance to surrender." But no reply came. Only static, only the slow echo of wind over mountains, waves and human silence. Then, at 0317 UTC, the stars flickered. Every alien ship's sensors went dark for 0.7 seconds. And in that moment, something ancient stirred beneath the Earth's crust. The magnetic field surged, creating interference across the fleet. Korthal frowned. What are they doing? But the silence was already turning into sound, a deep, steady hum from every frequency band. It was not music, not words, but something deeper, something that made even machines hesitate in orbit. A single transmission broke through the noise. It was the same voice, but slower this time. "Final broadcast," it said. "Leave now." The alien fleet ignored it, their weapons charging, their pride blinding them. They didn't see the satellites repositioning, or the debris fields aligning. They didn't notice the light bending above the planet like a mirror. Until the first beam hit, a spear of light tore through the void, slicing a cruiser clean in half. The explosion painted the orbit red. Korthal screamed, "Who fired that?" But there was no answer. Every human system was dark. No signals, no life signs, nothing. Then another beam, and another. Thousands of ships turned to fire upon an invisible target, but they found nothing. It was as if the planet itself had become the weapon. Captain Mira Han watched the chaos unfold from the Vigilant. "Target's locked," her officer reported. "Do we engage?" Mira looked at Earth through the observation glass. Still, blue, beautiful. She nodded slowly. "Engage." The ship's engines roared to life. Emerging from stealth for the first time in a decade, the Terran defense fleet revealed itself. Dozens of black ships decloaked behind the moon, silent and waiting, each one named after a fallen city. Kyiv, Tokyo, Cairo, New York, Lahore, Sydney. Ghosts of humanity's past rising again. The final broadcast repeated one last time. "Leave our skies," but this time the words carried power, as if the entire planet spoke them together. The alien admiral felt his throat tighten, a strange fear he had never known before for the first time. He wondered if the humans weren't threatening. Maybe they were warning in the following seconds. Earth's orbital mirrors activated, redirecting solar radiation into focused beams. It wasn't a weapon anyone had seen before. It was light, pure, endless, and merciless. The night above Earth turned red, glowing like dawn. The invasion armada finally realized their mistake. But by then the sky was already burning, and far below, as cities across Earth watched the heavens ignite, every human understood this was no victory. This was survival, and humanity once again had become the fire that burned the stars. The smoke of battle drifted across low orbit. Alien wreckage burned like falling meteors, painting streaks of fire across the night, yet in the silence that followed, humanity said nothing. No victory speech, no reply to the galaxy that watched in disbelief. Only a quiet Earth hidden under clouds waiting far above. What remained of the Zethar armada regrouped near the edge of the moon's shadow. Admiral Korthal stood frozen before the holomap, watching thousands of red icons vanish one by one. His mind could not understand how a single world had done this. Impossible, he whispered. His claws trembling, a bridge officer turned, pale scales glinting under emergency lights. Sir, scanners show no movement from Earth. No transmissions, nothing. Korthal's eyes narrowed. They attack then disappear, like ghosts. But in the dark below, ghosts were exactly what waited. Deep under the surface, miles beneath the Pacific, the Terran Corps command remained silent. Rows of screens showed alien fleets moving like ants in orbit. Commander Leonvoss stood before a transparent display, her face calm but her pulse steady and cold. Phase 1 complete, the AI voice confirmed, soft yet firm. Enemy morale reduced by 70%. Leon nodded slowly. They will send reinforcements. Of course, the AI answered. They always do. Across continents, hidden cities came alive. What the aliens thought were abandoned ruins were in truth fortified bunkers in the Sahara. Entire dunes shifted as sand collapsed into secret launch silos. In Antarctica, white storms covered vast hangars where stealth drones awakened, and in orbit satellites disguised as debris began to drift, aligning themselves with impossible precision. To the naked eye, Earth seemed still, but from above, it was rearranging itself piece by piece, like a sleeping beast turning in its rest. Meanwhile, in the human supercarrier Vigilant, Captain Mira Han watched the enemy formations tighten. Her crew worked in silence, their eyes fixed on the faint blue glow of Earth below. Captain, her officer said, the Armada is calling for negotiations. Mira smiled faintly. They didn't listen to the warning. She leaned forward, pressing a switch that connected her to the orbital relay. Record this, she ordered, her voice calm and clear, spread across the comm channels once more. To those above our sky, she said, there will be no negotiations. This is not arrogance. This is defense. We gave you a chance to live. The message ended, and her words echoed through the void. On the Zethar flagship, the translation came seconds later. Korthal's rage flared. They dare deny surrender? But one young officer whispered under his breath, Sir, maybe they don't need to surrender. Hours passed, and the galaxy's media networks broadcast every fragment of the battle. Civilizations from 100 worlds watched the flames over Earth. To some, humanity's defense was terrifying. To others, inspiring old allies of the humans sent encrypted messages of silence, neither helping nor condemning. They knew too well what Earth could do when cornered. Night fell over the continents again. Cities dimmed their lights. Skies cleared and stillness returned in a remote observatory atop the Andes. An old scientist looked up and whispered, they're learning not to touch the cradle again. Because that was what Earth had become, the cradle and the fire both. In the void above, fragments of shattered cruisers drifted slowly toward the atmosphere. Each one reflected sunlight for the last time before burning into dust. But from those ashes, a pattern began to form. The wreckage was being drawn into orbital alignment, magnetic fields guiding it subtly. To the alien sensors, it looked like chaos, but to human command, it was geometry, the first sign of Phase 2. Commander Voss spoke again in the deep core bunker. Activate the silent mirrors, she said above the clouds. Mirrors the size of continents adjusted their tilt, invisible to alien radar. They caught sunlight and bent it toward the upper stratosphere, not as a weapon but as a cloak within minutes. Earth vanished under a shield of shifting light. Unreadable and unseen, the alien fleet's instruments went blind, their systems flooded with false readings. It was as if the entire planet had dissolved. Leaving only ghost images behind, Admiral Korthal shouted, "Find them! Scan everything!" But every scan returned the same result. Nothing. In fury, he slammed his claws against the console, sparks flying. His bridge crew looked at him with fear, not of the humans but of what he might do next. Korthal turned toward the viewport, watching the empty blue sphere below. And for the first time in his long military life, he felt small. "They warned us," he muttered, his voice breaking. Behind him, the tactical officer whispered, "Sir, long-range sensors show movement from the dark side of the moon." Korthal turned sharply, eyes wide. "What movement?" The officer swallowed hard. "Many. Signatures, unknown configuration, high energy output," and then the darkness shifted. From behind the moon's shadow, shapes began to emerge, slow, silent, colossal, not alien, not familiar, something entirely human. Black hulls without markings, engines glowing like dying suns. Each one moved with purpose, with patience. Captain Mirahan's voice echoed once more through the void. "You should have listened." As the Zethar sensors tried to lock on, static filled the air. The human fleet didn't need to speak anymore. Earth had hidden its shadow well, and now the shadow was awake. The last clear image recorded by the alien drones showed a vast silhouette rising from behind the moon, larger than any warship in known history. Its name glowed faintly across its side, TSS Oblivion, and below it, thousands of smaller vessels aligned in formation. The invasion armada had come to conquer a world. Instead, they had awakened its guardians. The sky over Earth darkened once more, not from smoke this time, but from wings of steel and silence, and the shadows of Earth began to move. The alien armada floated in silence above the blue planet, their formations broken, their confidence shattered. Every scanner flickered with static, every radar blinded by ghost signals. Earth had vanished behind a wall of mirrored light, and in that light something began to glow. Admiral Korthal stared at the swirling interference patterns across his screens. "They are hiding behind their atmosphere," he growled. "Deploy plasma sweeps." Dozens of alien cruisers fired downward, beams of green fire cutting into the upper sky, but the light didn't pierce. It bent. Each beam curved away, scattering like mist in sunlight. And then, to their horror, the sky itself began to change color. It started faint, a shimmer of crimson along the horizon of space, then deepened, spreading like liquid fire until the entire curve of the planet glowed red. At first, the aliens thought it was atmospheric interference. Then came the readings. Impossible heat signatures rising from every continent. "Sir," the sensor officer shouted, "the surface is—" "Reflecting energy." Korthal froze. "Reflecting? What energy?" "Solar radiation?" "Sir," the officer replied, trembling. "They're weaponizing their own star, down below." Humanity watched the sky burn with purpose. From the command tunnels beneath Mount Nisa, Commander Leon Voss stood before a glowing map of the Earth. Each continent pulsed with red nodes, solar mirrors, plasma grids, orbital batteries, and all connected. "Initiate atmospheric refraction field," she ordered. A series of tones filled the air as power routes opened through underground reactors. The system linked oceans, mountains, and orbiting platforms into one living circuit, and the sky obeyed in orbit. The reflection of sunlight turned into a weapon of precision. Each ray concentrated through hundreds of adaptive mirrors. The first target was not random. The lead battleship of the invasion fleet caught the focus of every beam. Within seconds, its outer armor began to vaporize. Crew screamed as their hull melted under invisible pressure. No missile, no projectile, only light. Pure and merciless, the ship exploded silently, scattering molten fragments across the fleet. Admiral Korthal roared in disbelief. "How are they doing this without technology?" His engineer stammered. "Their planet is the technology." "Sir," Korthal's eyes widened. The realization cut deeper than any weapon. For centuries, the galaxy had seen humans as resourceful but primitive. Yet here they stood, using nature itself as a weapon of war. Far above the battle, the TSS Vigilant and her sister ships began to move, black silhouettes sliding through the burning sky. "Targets locked," Mirahan said quietly, her voice steady despite the chaos. The Vigilant's railgun towers rotated with silent precision, electromagnetic coils charged, their power readings spiking across every spectrum. "Fire," she commanded. The sound was not heard in space, but it was felt. A ripple of energy tore through the void. The slug, a tungsten rod the size of a building, traveled faster than thought. It struck the Zethar flagship midsection, punching through shield, armor, and core in one continuous motion. The explosion that followed blinded half the fleet. In seconds, 3 more human ships fired, turning orbital space into a storm of light and metal. From the planet's surface, the people watched through thermal filters. Every red streak across the night was not destruction. It was defense. The burning clouds were reminders that Earth had not died. It had adapted, learned, and prepared in the deep ocean trenches. The pulse of the Black Sky Network continued. Data streams rippled like electric veins through Earth's crust. Artificial intelligence nodes activated old satellites from the age of the first colonies. Each one became an eye marking every alien movement. The system whispered to its creators. Enemy resistance decreasing. Efficiency at 91%, Commander Voss nodded. Her voice calm. Proceed to thermal saturation stage. Back in orbit. Chaos spread. Alien captains shouted in confusion, ordering retreats that never completed. Their engines failed one by one, disabled by electromagnetic bursts from hidden Terran transmitters. Ships drifted helplessly, pulled by Earth's gravity, from the viewports of the Vigilant. The crew watched the fiery descent of hundreds of enemy vessels. Like burning meteors, they fell toward the red glowing sky. Admiral Korthal stared helplessly as his empire's pride burned. His claws dug into the railing, his voice breaking. They were supposed to be weak, he said. No one answered him because at that moment, every officer aboard knew humanity had been underestimated. The stories of their resilience, once dismissed as legend, were real. Then amidst the inferno, a new signal appeared on every alien frequency. It wasn't a voice at first, just a pulse deep and rhythmic. Then words formed, soft but cold. You ignored the warning. A pause followed. Now, you'll remember it forever. The signal faded and the sky above Earth burned brighter. No ships fired anymore, no commands were shouted. The invasion fleet was gone. Only fragments drifted, glowing, falling and turning to ash from orbit. Earth no longer looked peaceful. It looked alive. A living weapon cloaked in blue and fire. And in the heart of that light, Captain Mira Han whispered to her crew. They thought they saw our end, she said. But this is only our beginning. The human fleet held position, silent and ready. They knew the war wasn't over. More would come. Drawn by pride or revenge, but for now, the message was clear. Earth was no longer the target. It was the warning. The war above Earth was no longer a battle. It was a collapse. The alien fleet, once proud and unchallenged, was breaking apart like glass under pressure. Every second, another ship vanished into flame. Another signal cut to static. The great invasion that had come to conquer humanity was now begging for survival. Admiral Korthal's flagship drifted amid chaos, alarms screaming through the bridge. He gripped the rail, staring at a sky filled with fire and falling wreckage. Stabilize the line, he shouted. But no one answered. The officers were gone. The comms were dead through the viewport. He saw hundreds of his own ships burning like dying stars. This cannot be happening, he whispered. But the truth hung in the silence, and it was far below. In the control chambers beneath the Himalayas, humanity watched the storm unfold. Commander Lian Voss stood before the main holographic map, her face dimly lit by the red glow. Enemy fleet integrity below 20%, reported an AI voice. Should we pursue? Lian didn't look up, her voice calm but heavy. No pursuit. Not yet. They must understand the cost. In orbit, the TSS Vigilant led the human fleet through the debris field. Its hull bore scars from the last volley, but it moved with precision. Captain Mira Han's voice echoed through her bridge. All ships, maintain formation, she said. No mercy, no pride, this is justice. Her crew worked in silence, every movement synchronized like a machine built from discipline and pain. On the dark side of the moon, the colossal ship, TSS Oblivion, began to turn. It was a behemoth from the forgotten age of human expansion, a vessel never meant to fight again. Its engines ignited, sending shockwaves across the void. And when its railguns aligned, even space seemed to tremble. The command AI spoke softly. Targets locked. Fire sequence ready. Mira's voice came through the channel. Steady as ice. Oblivion, you may begin. The railguns fired. Not as sound, but as thunder without air. Each shot traveled faster than any light pulse. Each hit tore through an alien cruiser like it was made of paper. The Zethar fleet disintegrated under relentless precision. Their shields failed, their formations crumbled, and panic replaced command on the alien command bridge. Korthal fell to his knees. He stared at the map filled with red human markers. There were too many. He shouted to his surviving officers, "Retreat to deep space, get us out!" But their navigation systems refused to respond. The pulse from Earth had disrupted their jump drives completely. They were trapped inside the gravity well of a furious planet. "Sir," an officer cried, "our fleet can't escape the orbit." Korthal's voice broke. "Then burn everything. Burn the planet." But before they could act, a new transmission came through the chaos. A calm human voice. "Captain Mirahan, Admiral Korthal," she said. "This is your final moment. Your fleet came with arrogance. Now you leave with silence." Then the transmission ended, and the Vigilance guns turned toward his ship. The blast from the Terran railgun hit the flagship dead center. The explosion tore through decks, splitting the vessel in half. Korthal's last thought before the light consumed him was of the human warning. He finally understood, and it was never a threat. It was mercy they had refused as the flagship burned. The rest of the armada broke into fragments. Some tried to flee but found their engines dead. Others crashed into each other, spinning toward Earth's atmosphere in flames. In seconds, the war became a storm of falling fire. From the ground, humanity watched as the sky turned to red again, not from sunlight, but from vengeance. Commander Voss looked up at the live feed, her eyes soft with sorrow. "End transmission," she whispered. "We've done enough," her officers nodded, powering down the network of orbital mirrors. Slowly, the red light faded, replaced by the soft blue glow of dawn. Captain Mirahan stood at the bridge window, staring at the burning horizon of the world below. Her crew waited for her command, but she said nothing. She remembered the first invasion centuries ago, when Earth had almost fallen. Now humanity had risen so far that even stars feared their silence. But victory didn't feel like triumph. It felt like a memory returning, painful, necessary, endless. A quiet tone sounded from the communications console. It was a message from the United Human Command. "Phase 3 ready, awaiting your order." Mira took a deep breath. Her voice steady. "Stand down," she said. "Let the sky cool." The human fleet dimmed its weapons and drifted among the ruins of the invasion. No cheers, no celebration, and only quiet. They had won. But the silence was heavier than war. In the distance, the remains of alien ships burned upon re-entry, their ashes scattered across the upper atmosphere. From the deserts to the frozen poles, humanity watched them fall like shooting stars. Children pointed at the glowing streaks, not knowing what they were, but every soldier knew. The stars were burning for a reason, and somewhere in the black of space, beyond the dying echoes of the battle, a message began to spread. It traveled through every network, every system, every world. It carried only 4 words. "Do not test Earth." The armada was gone. The galaxy now knew the truth. When humanity warned, it wasn't a threat, it was a promise. The flames in orbit were fading, but Earth was not ready to sleep yet. The war had ended. Yet the silence that followed felt too still, too fragile. In the deep command chambers below the Pacific, humanity prepared for the next phase, the final safeguard. Whispered in myths among the Terran military, the Black Sky Protocol. Commander Leon Voss stood inside the core control chamber. Surrounded by faint blue light, the room was cold, filled with machines older than the war itself. Every wall hummed with hidden energy, as if the Earth itself was breathing. An AI voice spoke from the console, calm and human-like. "Commander, orbital activity has ceased. Enemy presence reduced to debris. Shall we begin activation?" Leon hesitated, her eyes fixed on the holographic image of the planet. She knew once it began there was no turning back. "Yes," she whispered, "begin." Deep beneath oceans and mountains, reactors that had been sealed for a century roared back to life. The Black Sky Protocol wasn't a weapon of destruction. It was something older, a shield, an intelligence network, a wall between humanity and the void across the globe. Satellites long thought dead blinked awake. From deserts, from ruins, from the dark side of the moon, signals flared, connecting into one pulse. The Earth was building a net of light, invisible but endless, above the planet. Captain Mirahan watched from the TSS Vigilant. Her crew stared in awe as streaks of light began to curve across the atmosphere, each one like a ribbon of silver energy. "What are we seeing?" asked her second officer. Mira replied softly. "History, from orbit." It looked like veins of light wrapping around the world, and within minutes, the Earth was no longer just a planet. It was a fortress in the ruins of the alien fleet. A few surviving ships tried to transmit distress calls, but every frequency bounced back, distorted. Their systems screamed warnings, signal interference total. No communication possible, panic spread. "Sir, the humans are jamming the spectrum," one pilot cried. But it wasn't jamming, it was isolation. The Black Sky Protocol had sealed the planet. No signal entered and none escaped. Earth had closed its gates to the stars. Back in the control chamber, Commander Voss watched as data scrolled across the displays. Atmospheric defense grid active. Orbital relay synchronized. Global field at 98%. The AI's voice deepened. "Protocol complete, intrusion probability near zero." Leon nodded, then turned to her officers. "Send word to every colony. Earth stands alone now." Her words carried both pride and sorrow. For in saving humanity, she had also isolated it. The stars beyond would see nothing but darkness where Earth once glowed. On the Vigilant, Mira Han received the encrypted order. Her screen flashed with the Terran Command emblem. "The order of final silence, Captain," her officer asked. "Does this mean no contact even with allies?" Mira closed her eyes for a moment. "Yes," she said quietly. "No one comes in, no one goes out." She turned toward the observation glass where the curve of the Earth shimmered beneath her. "Humanity has spoken its last word to the galaxy," she whispered. "Now the galaxy will remember." In the upper orbit, fragments of alien ships drifted slowly. They glowed faintly as the new Terran field consumed them. Piece by piece they dissolved into light, their atoms broken down by the planet's defense layer. It was a silent cleanup. A cosmic erasure by the next dawn. There would be no trace of the invasion left, only a clear sky. And a quiet planet that looked as innocent as ever. From deep space, distant civilizations tried to scan Earth, but their telescopes showed nothing. The coordinates existed, yet the readings were blank. As if the planet had never been there, rumors spread through the star systems. Some said Earth had destroyed itself in the battle. Others whispered that it had ascended into another realm. But the oldest among them, the ones who remembered human wars, knew better. They said Earth had simply vanished to wait. Inside the Black Sky chamber, the AI spoke again. "Commander, full isolation achieved. The planet is invisible to all known detection." Voss nodded, her tone steady. "Good," she said. "Let them search for us. Let them wonder." She turned to the main display showing the peaceful image of the planet. "Humanity has earned its silence," she murmured. Her assistant whispered, "For how long?" Leanne didn't answer, her eyes distant. "Until they forget how to invade," she said softly. Far above, the Vigilant drifted silently, the last ship still in orbit, its engines dormant, its crew watching the sunrise over a world reborn. The red clouds faded into gold, the flames into light. The war was over, and the planet slept beneath an invisible shield. No invader would touch it again, and as the sun rose higher, Mirahan whispered the words carried in every soldier's heart. Earth doesn't need to shout anymore, because now, the stars will whisper its name in fear. The night was calm again, but not silent far above. The stars shone softly over the wounded sky. Below, the oceans of Earth whispered to one another, as if the water itself remembered what had happened. But deep within those oceans, something ancient was waking. The invasion had not ended completely. A few alien survivors had escaped the orbital storm. Their broken ships drifted like shadows over the planet's blue horizon. Their engines cracked, hulls torn, yet their hatred burned bright. They gathered above the Pacific, hoping to strike one last blow before fleeing into the void. Admiral Korthal was gone, but his second-in-command, Commander Vreth, still lived, and vengeance still burned in her chest. She stared at the image of the planet before her. "Destroy their oceans," she hissed, her voice trembling with rage. "They hid beneath the sea. Let's see how long they survive when it burns." Her engineers obeyed, charging plasma launchers, their ships glowing faintly like wounded beasts, but none of them knew. The ocean they were pointing their weapons at was not the same one they had seen before. Beneath the waves, hundreds of miles below the surface, metal giants rested on the seafloor, waiting. They were the oldest of humanity's weapons. Autonomous ocean guardians built during the Age of Collapse, dormant for centuries. They had been left to rust, forgotten by history, until the Black Sky Protocol reactivated them. One by one, their eyes opened, glowing with blue light through the abyss. Their names were carved on their sides: Neptune, Leviathan, Abyssal Dawn, and Poseidon's Wrath, and as the alien fleet aimed its plasma cannons downward, the sea began to rise. From the surface, the first wave came without sound. A pillar of water and light erupted upward, breaking through clouds. It struck the first alien cruiser like a hammer, bending metal, tearing through the deck. Before the others could react, 3 more pillars followed, each one glowing with energy, not natural but controlled. The oceans were fighting back. Commander Vreth shouted in panic, "Fire! Burn them all!" Her ships unleashed waves of plasma into the water, but the beams didn't hit their targets. They scattered across strange magnetic ripples reflecting back toward the sky. Flames rained down on their own fleet in moments. The invaders realized the terrible truth. The oceans were alive. Not in spirit, but in design, miles below. Leviathan rose from the deep. Its massive frame glowed like molten metal under the crushing pressure. The Guardian's cannons rotated slowly, targeting the falling plasma clouds with a low hum. It fired, rail-shot torpedoes cutting upward through miles of dark water. When they reached the surface, they tore through the air like comets. The alien ships above exploded in lines of fire. The night sky turned red again, and this time the fire came from below. Captain Mira Han watched the scene unfold from the Vigilant's upper deck. Her crew stood in silence, faces reflecting the glow of the burning horizon. "Those signals," an officer whispered. "They're coming from below the surface." Mira nodded slowly. "The Deep Guardians," she said, her tone both proud and sad. They woke up, from the Pacific to the Atlantic. From the Arctic to the Indian, massive structures broke through the waves. Towers of steel and energy rising like sleeping gods from the deep, each one connected to the black sky grid, amplifying its field. Lightning danced across their surfaces, merging with the storm clouds above, and through that storm, the remaining alien ships fell one by one. Commander Vreth screamed through static, "Retreat! Retreat!" But the sea would not allow it. Their drives failed as electromagnetic pulses flooded their systems. They tried to ascend, but invisible barriers bent space around them. Their ships spun helplessly, caught between gravity and fury. In seconds, the last of them burned, swallowed by the same ocean they had mocked. The storm finally broke. Rain fell across the coasts of every continent. Heavy and pure, people stepped out from their shelters, looking up at the crimson clouds dissolving into gold. Children pointed at the strange lights dancing on the horizon. They did not know they were watching humanity's final line of defense returning to rest. Deep below, Leviathan sent one last pulse to the command center. Its voice came across the speakers. Low and ancient. "Threat neutralized," it said. Returning to sleep. Commander Voss listened, her expression unreadable. "Thank you," she whispered. "Rest again, old friend." Slowly, the Ocean Guardian sank back into the abyss. The waves calmed and the world grew quiet. The skies cleared, revealing a soft morning light spreading across the planet. Humanity had won again, but the price was heavy. They had turned their oceans into weapons, their planet into a fortress. And though the war was over, the peace felt uneasy. Captain Mira Han stood at her viewport below her. Earth gleamed like a jewel wrapped in blue and silver. She touched the glass gently, her voice almost a whisper.
"Fire over the ocean," she said, "and still."
"We survive," her officer turned to her. "Captain, what now?" Mira looked at the horizon where sunlight met the endless sea. "Now," she said, "we prepare for the ones who watched and did nothing." Because she knew somewhere beyond the stars, other eyes were watching, waiting, planning, fearing, and far away in the void between galaxies. A new signal flickered to life. It was faint, distant, and full of static. But its message was clear. They fought the invasion, it said. They survived the fire. And now Earth stands alone. The war was over. The sky no longer burned, and the oceans had grown calm again. But silence had weight now. It pressed down on the planet like fog, deep, heavy and endless from orbit. Earth looked peaceful. Clouds drifted like white silk across the blue. No wreckage, no sign of invasion. Yet hidden under that beauty was a planet that had fought the galaxy and won. Captain Mira Han stood alone in the bridge of the TSS Vigilant. Her crew had gone quiet, some asleep in their stations, others simply staring out into space. The screen still flickered faintly with readings from the battlefield. But there were no enemies left to track. "Only ghosts," she whispered softly to herself. "They came to conquer us and found the one thing the galaxy feared most. Humans who don't give up." In the deep tunnels beneath the Pacific, Commander Leon Voss walked through the silent control room. The lights dimmed, the machines humming softly in the dark. Reports scrolled across the displays. All systems stable, no foreign signals detected. The black sky shield remains active. The AI's calm voice broke the silence. "Commander, would you like to deactivate combat readiness?" Voss stared at the glowing Earth hologram before her. "No," she said quietly. "Not yet. We've learned that peace never lasts." On the surface, cities began to awaken from darkness. People stepped outside to see sunlight for the first time in days. Birds returned to skies that had once burned red. Families gathered in the streets, watching as holographic broadcast declared it over. "The invasion has ended," the message said. But those who had seen the fire knew. The end of one war was the beginning of another kind of silence. In orbit, the human fleet drifted in formation, their black hulls gleaming faintly in the sunrise. The TSS Oblivion floated like a monument, surrounded by fragments of light and memory. A transmission from the United Terran Command came through. "Stand down, fleets," it said. "Earth is safe." But Captain Mira didn't reply. She just watched as the planet slowly turned below her. A small world that had defied extinction again and again. Her heart was proud but also tired. Later, she walked to the observation deck, a massive window overlooking the curve of Earth. Her second officer joined her, his voice quiet. "Do you think they'll come again, Captain?" Mira looked at the horizon where night met dawn. "They always come," she said. "Different names, different faces, same arrogance. But next time they'll remember this sky, down below." The waves lapped against the coasts where once fire had fallen. In the ruins of the old launch site in Kenya, a child found a piece of alien metal half buried in the sand. He picked it up, turning it in the sunlight. To him, it was only strange and beautiful. He didn't know it was a fragment of a warship that had once aimed to destroy his world. He smiled, then threw it into the sea. The water swallowed it and the world kept turning. In the command chamber, Commander Voss stood before her console, sending the final message of the war. "To all Terran colonies," she said, her voice calm and steady, "the invasion is over. Earth remains strong. We will not seek revenge. We will not march outward. We will endure. Because the galaxy now knows. We are the storm they tried to cage." The message spread across hidden channels, silent waves that only human receivers could hear. Every colony, every outpost, every station paused to listen, and across the stars, humanity remembered who they were again. At dusk, when the last fires in orbit faded, the sky turned a deep violet. The clouds glowed gold where sunlight touched the edges. Mira stood at her console, one last order flashing across the screen. Mission complete. But she didn't press confirm. She looked at the stars instead, those distant suns that had once looked down on Earth with pity. Now they looked with fear, and yet behind that fear, she hoped there might be respect. "Maybe someday," she whispered, "they'll come not as conquerors, but as friends." She turned off the console, the bridge lights dimmed. Outside, the first meteors of the old battlefield streaked across the atmosphere. The fragments of fallen ships burned beautifully. From the surface, people pointed at them and made wishes, not knowing that the light they admired was the last echo of a war their ancestors had warned about. Commander Voss stood by her window, the AI voice breaking the stillness. "Commander, threat level reduced to 0. Would you like to stand down defenses?" Voss thought for a long moment. Then she smiled faintly. "Not yet," she said. "Let the stars know we are still watching." Far beyond the solar system, across the black corridors of space, whispers spread between empires and fleets. They spoke of the human world that had burned the sky, of oceans that fought back, of silence that spoke louder than war. Some called them deathworlders, others called them guardians. But one truth remained. No one would ever invade Earth again. And on that quiet dawn, as the planet turned beneath a calm blue sky, humanity stood united, not in fear but in memory. They had survived the fire, the invasion, and the arrogance of the stars, and now, for the first time in centuries, Earth could finally breathe. The sky was quiet. The stars were listening, and humanity, the forgotten flame of the galaxy, burned brighter than ever.